Back to Laura Gets Real About Life. I want to start out by saying thank you to everyone who viewed my first video, The Joys of Pregnancy. If you have not checked it out, please go to my channel and check out the first video from last week. And also thank you to those who subscribed to my channel. I appreciate it, and I'm going to be trying to stick with weekly videos for now and see how that goes. Today's video, I want to talk about the college experience, but we're going to focus on non-traditional students, mainly because that's where I fit in. That's the path I took, was non-traditional student. What that term means is that traditional would be you go straight to college out of high school without a huge gap in between. So non-traditional is typically older students or people who went out and got married or traveled or took time off and later in life decided that they did want to go and, continue their education. So, that being said, my first experience with being a non-traditional student, I went to Pellissippi State here in Knoxville, Tennessee. I started when my oldest was 9 months old. And I was going through a divorce at the time, so I had a lot going on. At the time, I thought I wanted to do, excuse me, paralegal studies. So I went, and there was, at Pellissippi, the ratio of non-traditional students to traditional students, it seemed in most of my classes that most of the students were non-traditional in the field that I chose. There was probably 40% traditional students, and the rest were non-traditional. So it definitely helped for me to ease into becoming a college student after being away from school for so long. I will say it was quite a transition. College is much different, even at a community college, than high school. The workload is different. The assignments require different things. But I graduated. I went part-time, so it did take 4 years for a 2-year degree. So that was a struggle. Balancing work and family and school, it was a challenge. But for those of you who are considering going back to school, or who are traditional students or are non-traditional students, good for you. Because let me tell you, honestly, I really wish I had gone straight to college after high school, just because I was already in that learning mindset at that time. And I feel like I probably would have been a better student if I wasn't juggling everything. Although, in some ways I feel like being a non-traditional student has been to my benefit, because I do take it more seriously. All of the loans and all of the tuition, that's all going to be on my head, not on my parents, not on, anything else. So that is something that I do consider when I'm doing my homework and registering for classes is, I want to make sure that I do as well as I can on all my assignments and my exams and things, because ultimately I do want to succeed. I graduated Pellissippi in 2015. I then decided in the spring of this year, so January 2019, I decided to go back to school. My husband and I talked about it for a while. I kind of kept putting it off a little bit because I did want to figure out something that I enjoyed doing. Because with my paralegal degree, once I graduated, I did work in a law office. And unfortunately, it wasn't what I was expecting. The people weren't what I was expecting. The job itself wasn't what I was 100% expecting. So I did change my mind and went with something else. I'm currently, my major at UT, Knoxville campus, is social work. I chose social work after various life experiences, which is another thing that I think non-traditional students, it definitely is helpful having that life experience, because then you're able to really go into college and know, or at least have a stronger sense of knowing what it is that you want to do with your life, what brings you joy or what brings you satisfaction. For me, social work is that, because I have a stepson who's got some special needs, and it's really challenging So we've worked with different therapists, we've worked with different caseworkers and things over the years to find him, what he needs that's going to suit him and what works best for him. We have friends that are dealing with social workers in hospitals with their children. So that's another aspect that I'm looking at. We've met with, we wanted to do foster care at one point, and unfortunately for us, it was not an option. But there are people who do the caseworkers for foster care, caseworkers for adoption services. Those are all things that people with a social work degree can do, as well as hospice care, veterinarian care, and that sort of thing. So for me, that's why I chose social work. I feel like I can make a difference in other people's lives and my own by exposing myself to these different situations and different people. I also decided to take American Sign Language as my foreign language in college because it's something that I've always wanted to learn. I've always been fascinated by sign language, and I've had several experiences where I ran into situations as a customer service person. I worked at Chick-fil-A for a little while, and there was a family that came in every week for dinner. The mother and father were deaf. I'm not sure that the children were deaf, but they all were signing. And it was just frustrating for me that this family couldn't enjoy the same experience at Chick-fil-A as the other customers, because when they would come in, they would bring a pen and a paper and write down their order. And really, I had no other way to communicate with them other than writing things down. So for me, that was really frustrating. And so that's something that I was excited to go back to school. And when I found out I could do sign language for my foreign language, I knew that was for me. There are so many people in the social work industry that do other languages, Spanish, among other foreign languages. And so I really wanted something not standard so that maybe if I run into a family that is deaf or that needs, they're hard of hearing and they do need the sign language, I would be available to communicate with that family fluently and not just, awkward trying to sign what I was trying to say, but actually really know that what I'm signing is what I'm intending on saying. So getting real about the college experience as a non-traditional student, when you're a traditional student, I see a lot of people joining sororities and fraternities and participating in all these on-campus events. Unfortunately for me, I have not been able to experience most of those types of things as a non-traditional student, mainly due to the fact that a lot of these events are at times when either it's in the evening after my children go to bed, or that I'm getting children, fed dinner and baths and things, or it conflicts with my older children's school schedule or my husband's work schedule, or my class schedule, because my class schedule, I go 2 days a week. So I go Tuesdays and Thursdays. So certain events that are held during those times that I'm in class, I'm unable to attend just because that's just my schedule. Also, other things I've encountered. So last semester, I was taking an English class. At the end of the semester, there was a project, and I think there was about 15 students left in our class after everybody dropped out or withdrew. Most of the topics were two people topics. I knew that I would prefer to work by myself because I don't have time to go meet up with someone or to wait on someone else to finish what they need to be doing for a project. That may seem self-centered, but honestly, I just want to be the only one responsible for my grade. So we start picking our topics in the class, and I was the first one to pick my topic because I knew which ones were interesting to me, and I also knew which ones were going to be a single person topic where you didn't have to rely on a partner. And so I picked my topic and volunteered to do my assignment by myself and my presentation by myself. As we're leaving class, I was the oldest student in this class. I was about 4 years younger than my instructor. And all the students that were in my class were all traditional students. They were all 19, 20, maybe 21. And their way, back in the, okay, when I was in high school, most people didn't even have cell phones. Or, you'd give somebody your number, your address, and you'd meet up to work on a project. So these students were saying, hey, snap me your contact information for Snapchat and we can just message on Snapchat. And I honestly felt so old because I don't use Snapchat. I have no need for Snapchat. I stick to Facebook, good old classics, texting, calling. I didn't even know you could message on Snapchat aside from pictures. So it just caught me off guard when they're like, oh yeah, just snap me. And it was strange. And then, they have these things called pods at the UT campus. They're little convenience stores, basically. It's like a gas station with no pumps, okay? And so they have drinks and like candy bars and little sandwiches and all the things. Most people that go into the pod go in and get like a sandwich and a drink and maybe a candy bar or a bag of chips. When I go into the pod, my husband drives me to campus every class period, every Tuesday and Thursday, and then he leaves and takes kids home for a nap and comes back and picks me up after my 2 classes. So when he comes back, there's him plus the 2 children plus myself. And so if I go to the pod, I will go in and grab drinks for me and him and snacks for the kids. I mean, I'm walking out with, a grocery bag of stuff. And I always feel the need to tell the cashier, even though usually I'm at the same pod, so it's usually the same cashier. I always feel the need to tell them, like, this is not all for me. I know this looks bad. I'm pregnant. I'm in here with the pod, buying everything out. But I have 2 kids in the car with my husband, and if I don't get them a snack, it's going to be a long ride home. And they just giggle, and they're like, you don't need to explain. But I still feel the need to just mention it. Because I know that everyone that's in line behind me is just like, staring at me all crazy. Let's see. What else about non-traditional students? Oh, thankfully, I don't have to deal with campus traffic very often because I do commute back and forth. So I'm only on campus 2 days a week, which is wonderful. I am spoiled. My husband drives me, drops me right outside of the building I need to go in. I walk across the street to the other building I need to go in, and then he picks me up at the same spot he dropped me off. I tease him all the time that he's spoiled. And last semester, I had to drive myself to school one day. And for commuter parking, it's not readily available. So there's a giant parking garage, G10, down by the stadium and by Thompson Bowling Arena. But from where my classes are, you have to walk up this steep hill. And so after that day, I think it was even before the end of the day, it was like on my way to that class or when I got to the class and could finally breathe. I texted him and I said, okay, you're right. He's like, about what? I'm like, I am spoiled too, because you drive me to class so I don't have to walk all over this campus. And I definitely appreciate the spoilage now. So that's, some of the issues I deal with as a non-traditional student. If any of you are a non-traditional student or are considering going back to school, leave me a comment about what you've experienced or what your fears or hopes are for becoming a non-traditional student. I would love to hear other people's perspectives on things I've left out or your opinion on things that I've mentioned. So yeah, just leave me a comment, and if you have any suggestions for future videos or suggestions on non-traditional students, please leave me a comment. I'd really appreciate it. I love getting some feedback. Have a good one.